Hi, it's Penny here. Welcome to another reading vlog. Since I am now trying to stick my vlogs to be strictly 1 week, I am in the middle of 2 really long books, and I'm hopeful, maybe delusional, that I am going to finish both of them by the end of the week. Honestly, I have my doubts, but that's the plan, that's the hope. We'll see what happens. So firstly, I have Oathbringer. I am reading it on my Kobo, but I do also have the physical copy up there. I was just too lazy to get it off the shelf, but I am opening it every now and then when I get to the pictures because it's easier to look at them in more detail physically than on this tiny little screen, even though you can zoom in, but it's not the same. Anyway, I am 14% of the way in. So Oathbringer is the 3rd book in the Stormlight Archives, which is an epic fantasy that lots of people talk about. I won't get into the plot too much, but the 3rd book, we really focus on this man named Delana, who's kind of like this big leader in this culture that's very focused on war. And he's also now kind of learning about the magic of the world. And we're also getting a lot of his backstory and how he used to be this very violent man and kind of the journey that he's gone on to become who he is. I really don't like his story that much. It's a lot of battles and fighting, which is not an element of fantasy books that I tend to enjoy. And it also leans really heavily on this idea that he has lost his memories or lost some of the memories of what happened in the past, and he's gonna gain them as we go through this book and read about his backstory. And because Brandon Sanderson used that already in the 2nd book in the series with Shalon, I'm not a fan of him rehashing that concept. He also used it to some degree in The Sunlit Man and The Frugal Wizard's Guide to Medieval England. Is that the title? Who knows? So those were the 2 secret project books he did. So I'm never a fan, really, of when authors do this thing where like a character's just conveniently remembering something as it's useful to the plot for them to know this thing that they should have already known. Anyway, there are some other characters that I really love. They're not getting as much page time as Delana, which is making me a bit sad, but hopefully once it gets going, like I'm only 15% of the way in, even though I feel like I've been reading it a long time already. My Kobo is saying I've got 29 hours left. I think my Kobo is still optimistic about my reading speed, and I also think I don't have 29 hours to be reading this week, so is it realistic for me to believe I could finish this by the end of the week? Probably not, but I'm gonna just keep believing, and maybe it'll happen somehow. The other book that I am reading is an audiobook, so I'm reading The First Binding by Virdi. The audiobook is 40 hours long, and I think I'm about 30% of the way through. I really liked the setup for this, but I'm not sure that it's delivering on the promise of the beginning yet. We are basically following this man who is a storyteller, and he's telling his story, as well as I've heard this book often compared to Name of the Wind, and in Name of the Wind you get little snippets of the storyteller's current life, but it's mainly about him telling his story. This one, you're getting quite a lot of his current life interspersed with parts of his story, interspersed with him telling other stories of the past, and I feel like that fragmentation is meaning we're not getting enough forward momentum in any of the plots, and I'm sort of worried that if I was not feeling like I was behind on all my reading, that I wouldn't mind that it's so slow, and it's my choices, my reading choices, that is making me as frustrated as I am. But also, I think it's just a little bit slower than it needs to be. Like, I don't mind it being slow. I really love Robin Hobb's books, which are really slow, but I think as well, like, if I'm going to compare it to Robin Hobb's books, those have a lot more emotional content, and same with The Name of the Wind, there's a lot more emotional content, which helps to keep me invested, whereas I'm not getting that from The First Binding at the moment, but I'm hopeful it will turn around as I read more, so I guess fingers crossed. That's how we're approaching this week. Hello, so I am on the floor in front of my bookshelves again, but I promise time has passed. In fact, I think maybe 2 days has passed, but I am up to part 2 in Oathbringer. So I've read all of part 1 and the interludes, and my Kobo is now telling me 24 hours to go. So there's like 3.5 days left of the week, so let's round it up to 4 even. That would mean 6 hours of this that I would need to read every day in order to finish. But we're going to continue. delusionally believing that maybe it's possible. I did also realize I had thought that this was the last thing I needed to read in my Cosmere reread before I got into new reads. However, I've remembered White Sands. And I also realized that the first volume of White Sands was actually released before this, and my hold at the library for that just came through, so I might take a break somewhere along the way and read that. Will that make it even more difficult to get through this on time? Maybe, maybe not though, because sometimes like I can pick up graphic novels around the edges of things when I couldn't be reading a full book anyway because I couldn't be focusing on a full book. Anyway, what thoughts do I have about part 1 of Oathbringer? I do think I'm into the story now, mainly because there hasn't been too much of the Dalinar backstory, and there's kind of an exciting thing that happens at the end of part 1. And I remember the first time I read Oathbringer, I felt like it came out of the blue. I didn't see it coming at all, and I was a bit confused about it. But rereading it, I don't know, maybe I'm just paying attention more. I can definitely see all the kind of the build-up to what happens, and it doesn't seem as out of the blue. And I can also see like a lot more like seeds that Sanderson is planting for things that are going to happen in the future. And I'm sure there's like heaps of things that he's seeding that I don't even know are going to happen, and I'm not picking up on them. So I definitely think once Stormlight Archives is finished, is it going to be after Wind and Truth, or is it going to be after the full 10 books? I don't know, but I will definitely be doing probably many more rereads of this series. I do think if I was going to say the thing that I'm enjoying the most in Oathbringer, I would actually say Taravangian. He's kind of a minor character, but when you know kind of more that's revealed about him later on, like it's so interesting seeing again how it's being set up and like knowing that things are presented in a certain way, but that they might not actually be that way. It's very satisfying. I do think since I last talked to you, even though it's been a couple of days, I haven't read any more of the first binding, so I won't tell you anything else about that. However, because I need the motivation, I have another box here to open. I will leave timestamps, chapters down below if you want to skip my box opening. I think I've got like 3, maybe 4 boxes left to open and find places for all the stuff. This box, I've just labeled it penny stuff because obviously it's going to be such random stuff that I couldn't even come up with some categories. So let's see what random stuff we've got. So firstly we have my Supergirl Wonder Woman bag. This I was mainly using for decoration at my old house, but what will I use it for now? As a bag maybe? I guess I'll figure out where bags go. And where do games go? Games go in the wardrobe probably for now. There's a bunch of soft toys in here that I think might actually end up finding their home at the top of the bookshelf. Is that too dangerous for you, Grumpy? No, he's tough. He can do it. This is Ugly Bear that my mum made. He's not ugly though, right? He's beautiful. And then Gloomy. Also this random echidna my brother gave me, who was looking after my crochet needles. Have I crocheted anytime lately? No. Would I like to? Maybe, if I could find the time. Do I need a crafting cupboard somewhere? In here are the coasters that came with the Sanderson Kickstarter boxes. So maybe those can go in the kitchen or something. We can use them again. A random Rainbow Bright pillowcase from my childhood. What am I doing with this? I don't know, but it's special to me. Same with this random werewolf fabric. Like, what am I doing with this? I don't know, but I didn't want to throw it away. Oh, and this elephant fabric. Then a couple of random picture frames. This is Misery, who's a New Zealand artist. This is my sister's art. I need to find homes for all of these, and I honestly have no idea. Some more toys. These are posters. And I do have some wall spaces to fill, so maybe I could fill them with those at some point. Some coloring pencils, I don't know, they probably go with the stationery. This is this random elephant wrapping paper that I swear I've had since I was like 5, and I really don't imagine I could ever use it, but I also can't bring myself to ever throw it out, so I guess I'll just keep that for the rest of eternity. I have my conference camera that I mainly had for work, and I don't really need it now, but I tried to sell it and nobody wanted to pay enough for me to think it was worth selling it. Maybe I'll find a use for it. These are a bunch of these funny puzzles where you can like make the pieces into cubes and then make all these other weird shapes. And sadly, I think I'm missing one. Those will go with games, I guess. This bag, I think, is all random things from that Kickstarter. A lot of the different pins. I actually don't know what's in a lot of these anymore. Oh, magnets. And this is like a bag of tissues, but I think it's wrapping up a bunch of breakable decorations. Then there's just a few random bags. Maybe I can put those in the bedroom wardrobe. There's nothing much in there yet. A laptop bag. This is the box for a puzzle that I have in a frame somewhere. And then this, I think, is full of jewellery. More tissue paper and random jewellery. A lot of this is actually earrings. And I let my earring holes close up because I always had a problem with like my skin's just too sensitive for a lot of earrings. But I have some really cool ones. So like, I would really like to be able to wear earrings again. I don't know. Anyway, that's that box. Hello. So, you know how I said definitely going to be finishing this vlog at the end of the week? Well, then on Sunday, I ended up having a Crohn's flare-up. So I have Crohn's disease, which is like an autoimmune thing that goes all through the whole digestive system. And on Sunday, it decided to come for me, even though it hasn't done that in a long time. So I was quite mad about it. So I spent a day in bed, not even reading, because I didn't even feel like I had the energy for reading or the brain power for reading. But I did, after that, have a couple more days of recovery where I have managed to get a bunch of reading done. So now it's saying I only have 11 hours to go, and I just got to the end of part 3 of Oathbringer, and I have remembered the last time I read Oathbringer, I think I listened to the audiobook, and I honestly think, like, usually I would say I'm fine with reading fantasy audiobooks. I still pick up on everything that's going on, but you know what? Now I have my doubts. Do I? Because there were lots of things in that part 3 that I didn't remember. Maybe I just forgot them because I definitely also have a bad memory, and like a lot of things have happened since I last read Oathbringer. So maybe I just forgot a lot of it, but I still got to have that experience of like being totally shocked by things, which I quite enjoyed actually. So it's actually a good thing that I don't remember all the things that are coming, because I know people always talk about the end of Oathbringer being quite exciting, and I always thought that I couldn't remember, or like that I hadn't really experienced that. So maybe this time I will experience it. I definitely think I'm enjoying reading it physically, and I wouldn't want to swap to audiobook, even though I definitely could have gotten through it faster if I was listening to the audiobook. But definitely reading it physically has let me pick up on a lot of things that I think even if I had read this with the book the first time, I wouldn't have picked up on. And I'm actually now really excited for Rhythm of War to see how many more things are being dropped that I will now pick up on now that I've reread the whole Cosmere, and I'm like way more well versed in what's going on. I will say, so part 2 was a lot of Bridge 4 and Dalinar, and I wasn't that interested in it. I felt like it got quite like spread out, like the story wasn't focused anymore, and I can see why what he was doing was important, but I was a little bit bored by it. Then part 3 definitely got more of a focus and has been more interesting. We have also had more of Dalinar's backstory, and I don't know, maybe I've forgotten about some stuff in parts 4 and 5, but I just think everything we've learned about Dalinar makes him so unlikable, and like I haven't seen any actions or any behavior yet that make me feel like, oh no, he's redeemed himself. Although it is very enlightening as to why so many people considered him a hypocrite in the first books, because he kind of is. But like, I don't know. Anyway, I'm currently at the state where I don't really like Dalinar, and given that so many people do like him, and in fact I saw someone the other day saying that they found him even more attractive after reading his flashback, and I was like, that sounds quite concerning. I don't know. I feel like at the moment though, when I read books about the brutalities of war, and especially when I read books where people try to justify violent actions, I'm just so unconvinced at the moment. Like, just Do not try to convince me that violence is necessary. Anyway, the main thing is I'm much more engaged. I actually think it was better that I got sick and spent a few days in bed reading this because I got to really focus in on it. And I feel like when I'm only coming to this like every now and then and reading it in little chunks, it's hard to feel like momentum is happening. But when you sit down and read a big chunk, then you actually do see that things are moving forward, which I would say I have read a little bit more of the first binding. I honestly don't know how much at this point, but I think that's kind of my problem with that one, that the momentum is so slow and I'm reading it in little pieces, so I'm not feeling that momentum. I'm also just kind of stuck on the fact that the broad plot beats are so much the same as The Name of the Wind, and it's not like anything in those plot beats is necessarily like massively unique, but it's just seeing them like put together in the same way, just with a different story, that I think is stopping me from feeling like the first binding is something fresh and new. And actually, since I've been a bit sick, I don't know when I'm going to go for a run again, so I don't actually know when I'll get another big chunk of the first binding read. But you know, when you get sick, you just have to see what happens, really. That's what you get when you have a chronic illness. Anyway, hopefully it will go back to behaving again after this, because it seems to be, I don't know. Anyway, let us go down here and open another box, because that's what I want to do now. Okay, so this one's art. I'm going to open it later. This one here says crafts, jewelry, and toys. So let's see what we've got. Oh, that's a terrible cut. Oh, it's a box of boxes. So, some more clothes used as packaging. Oh, a hair straightener. That goes in the hallway. So do clothes, actually. Cotton buds. I think I mainly just put these in here for the packaging, but those go in the bathrooms. A little sewing kit. I was looking for this, so now I can do some small things. This doesn't have much cotton in it, though. Hopefully there's some cotton somewhere. Ooh. Let's empty it from the front so it doesn't fall down. This also needs scissors to open it, but I think it might be toys, to be honest. And a lot of these are probably bookshelf ornaments that I currently don't really have room for. Oh no, looks like I'm wrong. This one is hair tie. Oh no, it is hair ties, cotton, a couple of random things, and then this is pretty much all just ponies of different kinds, like My Little Ponies and Tokidoki ponies, fancy My Little Ponies. One day these will go on the shelf, but probably not right now. Then this box. This is a random box. Oh, different glasses, hairbrush, more glasses, some headphones, some hair dye, and some wax strips. A bunch of body sprays, some more sewing stuff, and this is kind of random bathroom stuff. A lint shaver. I don't know where any of this stuff goes. Makeup brushes. This is some CDs of my own music. And then this last little box is probably toys again. We've got some bigger My Little Ponies. These are mostly the ones from my childhood. I was a big My Little Pony fan. This one here, actually, Moondancer, was my first My Little Pony. I also have some Monster High dolls in here and some Animal Crossing figures. Anyway, basically more kind of bookshelf shelf decorations that I'll need to work out what I'm doing with. Oh, I've made it so the box doesn't close. Good work, Penny. Okay, so that's another box. If I part my hair in the middle, do you think it covers up my terribly cut fringe, self-cut fringe, better? Because it was looking pretty bad, I think, in the last clip. Also, I did re-dye my hair, and I did a really bad job of the roots, even though that was the whole point of why I re-dyed it. Anyway, hair problems, but that's not really why we're here. We're here to talk about books. So, Oathbringer. I am 80% of the way through. I just got to the end of part 4. I still need to read the interludes, and then part 5, and then we are done. I have to say, during part 4, I started thinking Did I even finish this book when I said I read it previously? Because I was reading things that I had absolutely no memory of. But then near the end of part 4, some things happened and I was like, no, I think I did read this. So what I did is I looked up the date of when I last read Oathbringer, and it was the end of 2020, which as soon as you say 2020, that's a sign that something weird was going on. And for me personally, so I took 2019 off work, then March 2020, I was ready to go back to work. I had 3 second interviews lined up. One of them, the first one, was lined up for the day that the country went into lockdown. So that didn't work out. I ended up not having a job for like another 6 months. And then at the end of the year, I finally got a new job. It was really stressful. And that was apparently right when I was reading Oathbringer. So is it a surprise that I have not retained a lot of the information, given that I would have been completely overwhelmed with new job stuff at the time? Anyway, I definitely remember some of it, so it's not completely lost. But I am really enjoying reading it again, and I kind of like that I have no idea what's happening in part 5. I'm trying to think, what else did I have to say about it? I will say, if you are reading the Stormlight Archives and you have not read Warbreaker, you are missing a lot of like underlying stuff that's going on, and I'm really enjoying kind of those callbacks to that. Especially there is a particular magical sword who is maybe my favorite. I guess the other thing I should talk about is Delanar. I'm still very frustrated with him. I can see that it's trying to say that maybe he's not as to blame as you might think for some of the things that he's done, but also I'm really with Queen Fen. Queen Fen calls him out for sulking when he's like feeling bad about having done harm to other people, and I'm like, yep, that's what he's doing. Like, it just seems really selfish to me that he's always like, oh, I feel so bad. And I get it. When you feel shame and guilt, it does feel bad, and it's really easy to focus on yourself in that situation. But if Delanar is going to redeem himself, to me, he needs to be less selfish when he's feeling those feelings. And it's not really getting there for me. But as I said, don't really remember what happens in part 5, or I haven't read any of the later books in the series. So maybe he will redeem himself to me. But at the moment, I'm still kind of like, oh, Delanar, stop ruining everything. And I just don't get why people find him attractive. Don't get it. Anyway, hopefully I can finish this off. It's saying 7 hours to go. I think it's about 6.5 actually. This always rounds up. I want to say I could finish it by the end of the weekend, but it might be slightly over. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I did listen to a tiny bit of the first binding while I was dyeing my hair, but not very much, and not that much happened. And I just feel like I'm just very slowly reliving Name of the Wind. But I think the next thing that is going to happen is that he's finally going to get to this magic school that we've been building up to for the whole book. So hopefully some exciting things will happen there, I guess. Anyway, let's open up another box. This is my last box. I think it's going to be mostly like some bigger soft toys. And honestly, I have no idea what else, because this is one of the first boxes that I boxed up. And all I wrote on it is Penny's stuff, which is not very descriptive. So these are all like packaging things. This quite nice bag. Am I punk enough to use this these days? Debatable. This, I think, is a bunch of makeup that I don't wear very often, but I keep for occasional usefulness. This is the straps of my bag. Oh, this is a random like camera thing where you can wear your phone around your neck or something. I found it on the ground one time and I've never decided if it could actually be useful. This is one of my first teddy bears. This is a travel pillow. This, I think, is some art wrapped up. This picture of Undine from, is that her name? I think so. From Undertale that my sister did. Oh, and this My Little Pony one that my sister also bought me. And a towel. Another quite nice bag. Which bear? This bear that Jace bought me when we were first dating. My Fugler. And my mermaid My Little Pony. This is my like a exercise thing that goes with the Switch with this particular game. And then my degrees. Oh, and some art. Who knows where we will put these. Hello, so it is me on the floor again. I have finally finished Oathbringer. It took me, I think, about 3 weeks. I'm a little bit worried now about my longer term plans because I had planned to give myself 2 weeks for Rhythm of War, but if it took me 3 weeks for this, it's probably going to take me 3 weeks for Rhythm of War, right? So probably I should try and be realistic about that. We'll see. Anyway, Oathbringer. I am so glad that I reread this. I think I've said that before in this vlog, but I had forgotten so many things. Like, so many things happen near the end, which is what people would always say, and I'd be like, did it? Because I didn't remember most of those things. I will say, I did think that ending was quite choppy. Like, there's quite a lot of different characters' stories being included in like lots of tiny little pieces. And so it's like jumping around between all the different things. And some of those things felt like really important pieces of the bigger story. And they got just like the tiniest bit of attention, which I wish actually, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I wish this had been longer so that those particular bits could have gotten like a bit more attention. And I do wonder if the only reason it wasn't longer is because, you know, he's reaching page limitations in terms of what publishers are willing to publish in a single book. I will also say I still don't like Dalinar, but I am willing to accept that his plot line does add a lot to the story and like it is important, and I did kind of like where it went in the end. I do actually think though that some of those fight scenes near the beginning could have been shortened, and then maybe we could have got more of those things that I wanted at the ending, like that I wanted expanded. The other thing that I was thinking about while I was reading this that I haven't mentioned yet that I wanted to tell you about, I'm not going to hold that up anymore though because that's too heavy. Always in this one I think about all the parallels between the Stormlight Archives and Wheel of Time. Now, I don't really like Wheel of Time, so even if you say there's a lot of similarities, I still think Stormlight Archives is a million times better, in my opinion. But I kind of also suspect very strongly that Brandon Sanderson was very influenced by Wheel of Time in his creation of the Stormlight Archives, because it's a very similar setup in that we've got kind of this repeating destruction of the world and kind of certain characters coming back again and again in a way. And we also kind of had like this one big dark lord who is also surrounded by these like multiple, either we call them the Forsaken or we call them the Unmade, but like other bad guys who have different dark powers, but maybe they're not all as dark as you might think. Like, from that general setup, Stormlight Archives and the Wheel of Time have a lot of similarities, and I did see somebody trying to compare Kaladin to Rand. I actually don't think that's the way to match it. I was thinking about it, and I think maybe you should match Rand with Shalon. She's ginger for starters, but also like with the whole madness thing, and as far as like having the potential to change things. Because if you match Shalon with Rand, then you can also say Matt could be kind of like Dalinar in that he's someone who has a past that he's really struggling with and becomes somewhat of a general. And then as well, Kaladin I would definitely match to Perrin, because then Bridge 4 becomes the pack, right? And probably Jasna could be Nynaeve, because she's the prickly woman with a lot of strong power. I was trying to think about who Egwene would be. Maybe Adeline, but I'm not sure yet. Anyway, it's just kind of fun to compare the two. What I am actually going to do though is continue this vlog a little bit longer, even though it's Monday now, because tomorrow I'm actually having a colonoscopy. This was something that was planned before I got sick last week, but that makes it especially important probably. But like, that's the kind of thing I prefer to share with an end of vlog audience rather than a start of vlog audience. As well, since I finished Oathbringer, I am going to continue White Sand, because I forgot to tell you that I did read the first volume of White Sand somewhere along the way. To be honest, in the beginning I was thinking this isn't as bad as I remembered. Maybe this is going to be good now that I've reread all the Cosmere. No, it's just, I don't think fits the graphic novel format very well, and there's just a lot of dialogue where the graphics are not very interesting, and then there's very little plot progression, and it just feels very nothingish. So I'm going to read volumes 2 and 3 just to see whether I still feel the same about them, which is, I think I gave them 2 stars on my last read, so we'll see. As well, I'll probably try tonight while I do the preparation for my colonoscopy. I'm just going to try and read while I do that. So I'm going to read Dawnshard. I am a little bit annoyed because I got Dawnshard from the library, but this new library that I joined that I only have like a temporary membership with because it's not technically a city I live in, it's like one a little bit away from me, and I joined it, and I think I can't get a full membership, but I have a temporary one. And then I thought I would still be able to read those books on my Kobo. They are showing up in the Libby app on my phone, but they're not showing up on here. And at first I thought it was because I was struggling to add 2 libraries on my Kobo, which I do think is a problem. But even if I switch just to the new library, I don't seem to be able to load it on here, so I'm probably gonna have to read it on my phone. But that'll probably be okay. At least it's not that long. Honestly, I don't actually know much about Dawnshard, so I guess we will see what it's about when we get there. I do know a little bit about Dawnshards just because I have read The Sunlit Man, which I'm wondering how much of that is going to be spoilers. Anyway, I did say last time that I have unboxed all my boxes, but I do still have this art stuff that I boxed up, and I honestly can't remember what art we have, so let's open that and see. So we have this one, which I bought a long time ago and framed. I honestly have no idea where I'm going to put any of these, but for now we'll put them over here. This one is one, I worked at this company where anytime a new employee would start, they would make a little picture for you, and like after the artist guy would talk to you and talk about what you liked, and this is the one that I got. And then there's just this puzzle that I framed, and it glows in the dark, so for some reason I had thought to myself that I would update you partway through Dawnshard, but that would have been partway through my colonoscopy prep, and do you know what I definitely didn't feel like doing while I was doing that? Talking to anyone. So I did not, but I have finished volumes 2 and 3 of White Sand and also Dawnshard. Also, an aside, I gave up on the center part. I'm too old. I can't do it. Oh, and I guess I should also say the colonoscopy went as well as you could expect something like that to go. Not really fun, but at least now it's done. And hopefully I won't have to have another one for a little while. Unfortunately, having Crohn's means I get to have them a little bit more than usual. Anyway, White Sand. So volume 2 and 3. I guess the only thing I would say about White Sand compared to my previous read of it is that I was able to see some of the reveals coming, and I don't know if that's because I'd read it before and I kind of remembered, or just because I've now read so much more Sanderson stuff that I can kind of see the way he's setting things up. But also I think because it's a graphic novel and so there's not really that many words, I think what Sanderson often does is he kind of buries clues like really obviously, like it's all right there, but it's buried in the world building and the character development. But because in the graphic novel he doesn't get to have as much world building or character building, when there is a clue it kind of stands out and seems quite obvious. So then you don't really get that same Sanderson effect of like a bunch of things coming together in a really exciting way in the end. But as well, like just the world building is really hard to do. Like I think what he had created in White Sand and some of the stuff he wanted to get into was quite complex, but the complexity wasn't really easily expressible in graphic form. And then the character development, I just don't think was that great either. And the art, so partway through volume 2, the art style did change and it was more to my preference after that. Then in volume 3 it changed again, still similar, but I think not quite as good. I don't know what was going on there. I think probably they were getting not great feedback about White Sand and were trying to make it a little bit better, but possibly they didn't get there. But anyway, then I read Dawnshard, and I'm actually really glad that I read it straight after Oathbringer because I think it helped a lot that I still kind of felt very connected to that world. So Dawnshard, basically we are following Risen. Is that how you say her name? I don't know. She is this merchant woman that you meet in the Stormlight Archives, and she now has her own ship, and she is, for reasons, oh, because her pet is sick actually. She's got this cute little insect-like pet, and it's sick. And then she gets the opportunity to go to the island that this insect pet comes from, as part of this bigger quest that some of the Knights Radiant are going on. So she goes with the Lopin. Lopin is one of Brandon Sanderson's more humorous characters. I kind of like that in this story Sanderson does explore the fact that he can be very annoying, but still I had to put up with him being annoying for most of the story, which was annoying, you know? But it wasn't too bad. The humor wasn't too over the top, and I do really like some of the other characters that we got to meet and get to know a little bit more as they go this island and they discover a bit of a mystery of what's going on there. Oh, and another thing that Dawnshard has is it has like disability representation. It is mild spoilers for, I think, The Way of Kings or Words of Radiance. I can't remember which book Risen has cameos in. If you really want to avoid all spoilers, skip this. It's a very mild spoiler though. So it does have representation for disabled characters because Risen is not able to walk and uses a wheelchair. And part of the story is about her struggling with the lack of freedom that she gets from that, and also just with the way people treat her. And I would expect that Sanderson had a fair amount of like sensitivity readers having input in this book, and it seemed quite well written, like from a representation perspective. So I do like in Tress as well, you get a deaf character, and I just think Sanderson is trying to get that disability rep throughout the series, which I like. It's also one where, like, you could say, there are other characters. I'm trying to avoid spoilers, but you could say there's other characters in the Stormlight Archives who have physical disabilities that are kind of cured with magic, and I like that that wasn't an option necessarily that was being taken beyond maybe magic as technology. Sometimes it's hard to talk about books without going too far into spoilers. Anyway, Dawnshard, like, it wasn't amazing, but it was good. Like a solid 4-star story. I liked it. Better than Edge Dancer? Yeah, better than Edge Dancer. So that means now I only have new things. My Cosmere reread is no longer a reread. I'm just up to new reads. I've got Rhythm of War, The Lost Metal, and then Wind and Truth when it comes out at the end of the year. And maybe I could even be ready to read it in time for the release. Probably not the release, because it will take some time for me to actually even get my hands on the book, because this is New Zealand and things take their time, especially when you don't want to spend shit tons of money. So I guess that's going to be the end of my reading vlog. Let me know if you've read any of these books, because I would love to talk with you about them down in the comments. And just let me know if you've read any of the Cosmere books. Like, how are you feeling about the new Wind and Truth release? Are you going to be rereading things? Are you excited about it? Are you not even interested in that part of the Cosmere? That seems unlikely. Oh, I was also just trying to think about, like, what else did I read in this blog? The other thing I was reading is the first binding, and I have not finished it. I think I'm about 60% of the way through. I've read a little bit more since I last talked to you. Very little has happened. I'm kind of dying with the slow pace, but now that my colonoscopy's done, I'm going to go for another run, a couple of runs this week, and so hopefully I can finish it during that. So we're already into the next week. I know I said I was going to try and get back to weekly vlogs. I'm going to try again. So in my next vlog, I've got a couple of books to read, and I'm also going to try and finish off the first binding. So that's the plans for next week if you want to join me. Do subscribe if you'd like to see more of my bookish videos. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.